Hey everybody, out here doing my walk in the evening before the whole sun goes down. But anyway, should you start a nonprofit? Hi, I'm Yvette Kelly Fields, CEO and Principal Consultant for Yvette Kelly Fields and Associates. I help nonprofit leaders raise more money with less stress. That's what I do. I help you go get this money to do the great work and to impact great causes. And I have had people just as late as yesterday asking about, or they're trying to get funding for their nonprofit. It's always fun when people talk about their nonprofit, because in today's time, a lot of people think if they are the founder of a nonprofit, that it's theirs. They own it, and they talk about it like a for-profit business. Let me just share this with you. You do not own a nonprofit. You don't own it. A nonprofit belongs to the community. You are a steward of it. I know you might say, well, Yvette, but I founded it. Yes, you did. And you founded it for the purposes of serving society. You are not owning the nonprofit, because at the end of the day, anything that the nonprofit does belongs to the nonprofit. It doesn't belong to you. That's what makes it a nonprofit. Nonprofits are not like for-profits. They're not like businesses where you have an idea and you start the business and you start to sell the idea and then you get the money and you pay bills and then you keep the rest. That's a for-profit because you've earned a profit that you distribute to yourself. You can claim that. That is yours. You're doing it on the behalf of your own personal good, and your services and product benefit people. That's why they buy it. That business is yours. A nonprofit, when you're saying my work is to help the overall societal good, the nonprofit does not belong to you. You can start the nonprofit, you could be a funder to the nonprofit, but at the end of the day, if you don't properly steward that nonprofit, properly account for the money, do the work, you could go to jail. And your board, which is required for you to have a 501c3, they can go to jail too. This is not designed for you to create a nonprofit with a business mindset that I can take this nonprofit and I can go get money, and then I can go pay myself a great salary, and I want to pay all my friends a great salary, and we'll do some good work because I own this nonprofit. Most people who come to me with that, they're thinking to themselves, I want to start a nonprofit because I want to eventually be full-time. I have a certain salary in mind, how I want to be paid. I have a certain type of work I want to do. And because there's this free money I heard about, these grants, I want to do a nonprofit. It is almost always the number one reason people who don't have a nonprofit or sometimes start a nonprofit is because their goal is to have money. They just see another pot of money and they're thinking, well, as a business, whatever product they have, whatever service they have, is not viable for the market. So they're not able to sell enough of it to really build a sustainable for-profit. But they're told, hey, the work you do, you could do as a nonprofit, and then you could get grants and get this free money. 9 times out of 10, that's what people are doing. Now, there are people who think, because they don't fully understand what a nonprofit is, they don't understand the history of nonprofits, they don't understand how charity and nonprofits sometimes are synonymous, although they can be completely different things. They don't understand the fact that, okay, I have to run a nonprofit like a business, but I don't own it. They don't understand that part. They don't get that part. And I would say to anybody who is out there wanting to start a nonprofit or has started a nonprofit and you're struggling to get funding, you're struggling to try to get this free money, or you started doing some good work, but you're frustrated because you thought there was going to be all this money when you started doing the work, you are in the nonprofit business for the wrong reason. The right people who do nonprofit work are the people who see a need in the community, initially go and see if there's someone else meeting the need, try to work or volunteer with that group, and when they see there still needs to be more help, or there's not anybody addressing the same need, then they start to think about, what can I do? How could I meet this need? And they think about it from a point of view of, how do I help meet a need that bothers me, that's happening in society, and it's not a need that can be met by the marketplace. That means there's not a business you can start to address this. You cannot start a business to address domestic violence, because a business is designed to provide a service or product for pay. That's what a business does. You're not going to find women or men, in some cases, who are dealing with domestic violence issues being able to go to a for-profit organization to get away from a domestic violence situation. You might have people who are in a domestic violence situation who go talk to a lawyer to see what their options are. You might have a person in a domestic violence situation who might try to go rent an apartment to get away. That's the part in the market that can help them. But in terms of dealing with safety, in terms of how to deal with their kids, in terms of how to deal with the psychological trauma, and do all those things, and in many cases don't have the financial support to do it, because people who can actually get help through other means, they do. People turn to nonprofits when market resources or government resources run out. That's when they come to nonprofits. No one who's looking for some place to live, who can afford some place to live, is coming to a nonprofit, because they have the financial ability to go get a house or to rent an apartment. The people that come to a nonprofit looking for housing are usually directed there because they're telling people, I need a place to stay, but I can't afford the rent. I don't have a house. And people say, well, have you went to, have you heard of? And by that same token, people started nonprofits because either it was them who needed a place to stay and they had to do stuff to figure it out, and they didn't have any money, and they feel like somebody else should have the kind of help I had, because there's more people than me out here who are trying to find a place to stay and we don't have the money. There's other people who see that and decide, I'm going to start a nonprofit to help people like me who needed a place to stay. And then they start looking, are there other people who are doing this? And when they see that other people are doing it, they're looking at, well, how did they do it? And that's when they start to learn. It's like, okay, there's grants for housing. You can buy a house. You could do this. You could do that. If you're a nonprofit, I'm going to go ahead and get a 501c3 designation because I see how I can help people if I have access to more resources. If I need to bring in counselors, I'll be able to pay the counselors. And as a person who founded it, if I want to lead this full time, I can build this to the point where I can actually work full time for the nonprofit. So I'm not against people who see a need, start a nonprofit, and then build it and eventually end up leading it and being a paid staff member. That's common. What I tell you not to do is to start a nonprofit because you think there's money out there and you're like, oh, I can help women, domestic violence women, and I'm going to go out here and let me see if I can get the money first, and then I'll get the house and I'll get everything started. Then I'll start helping women. No. I start taking the resources that are already available to me and I start helping women. And then as I start to learn what their needs are, I start to have partners and collaborators. And then I start to build out the structure. I start to look at other people who have a structure and learn what they do. I bring a board in place. I get my 501c3 designation. And because this is work that I feel like I'm called to, I'm the first donor. I might be the first and biggest donor for a long time because I saw a need and I wanted to do something to address a need in society. And when these type of needs happen, a nonprofit structure is designed just for that. And that's when I use that structure. And I understand that myself and the board and anybody else who has some legal obligation are liable for the work that we do, that we have to have transparency, that we have to be good stewards of the money, and that the money that we bring in is designed to serve the people. We pay reasonable wages. We make sure that we do benefits and we do all the things correct because that's what you would do in business. But we understand that this money is not for us. Any extra money that comes in, we don't do a profit share. We don't split the check. There are nonprofits, you get large enough because of different kind of work. Sometimes they provide bonus for their staff because their staff does great stuff. But by and large, if there's $50,000 at the end of the year, that money is rolled over to the next year. It may be used to put in an endowment fund. It may be put into a rainy day fund. It may be put into a future program fund, but it's not split up and given out to everybody else. The goal of a nonprofit is not to make you rich. The goal of a nonprofit is not to give you a 6-figure job with benefits so you can walk away from your regular job and go live a life on the beach. That's what nonprofits, they're not designed for that. And if somebody's made you to believe that, I would dare say have that person call me and I would ask them, tell me the history that you know about nonprofits. Don't tell me about a webinar you went to. Don't tell me about a seminar you went to. Don't tell me about how somebody told you about this free money with grants. Don't tell me about how you wrote a grant and you got some money and you could do anything you want with that money. I want to sit down and ask you, tell me the history of nonprofits. Tell me the history of philanthropy. Walk me through why nonprofits exist. Not the type of information that's being put out there now, because people have become aware of the big amount of money that can come to a nonprofit and how they see that as an opportunity for them to get something, money that they couldn't get as a business. I'm trying to tell you, people will sell you a lot of stuff. They'll do grant training programs, which I do grant training programs too, and those can be for-profit organizations that treat you how to write grants. That's fine. You choose to pay or you don't choose to pay. But they cannot dictate what a nonprofit is. And they should be smart enough to tell you a nonprofit does not belong to you. It belongs to society. You are accountable to the community. Your board is accountable to the community. That's why they're not a paid board, unlike a corporate board. And that you should be in it, if you run a nonprofit, for the good of society and for addressing those needs. And I'll add this part too. It's not uncommon for people to be founders of nonprofits, raise dollars. They keep the job they have because they've been the key funder to the nonprofit. But as they raise dollars, they start to build a team of people where they and the board hire an executive director. And then they work with the executive director, who then goes to build out the rest of the team. Not uncommon. The founders stay on the board. They continue to raise money. They continue to direct resources and continue to move things forward. And the executive director then taking the strategic plan, the mission and vision, the fund development plan that's been outlined by the board, they take it and they execute it. And they take that and repeat it. That's the part where I come in, just to add that in there, because I work with executive directors who are new to fundraising, or they've been in an executive director role for a while and they're struggling to raise money. They feel stressed about it. They're trying to get their board activated. They might have been hired by a founder who was still trying to figure it out. Now the founders hired them, the boards hired them, and they're like, great, we hired you, you should know what you're doing. And you're sitting there like, I thought somebody would give me some training. I thought somebody would share some things with me. I thought I would get more support. And oftentimes they don't always get it. And then they just kind of white knuckle it through. And then all of a sudden you look up and they quit because they got burnt out, because they didn't understand. And now that organization is back to trying to figure it out all over again. I'm here to help an executive director stay in a position. I'm here to help them figure it out. I'm here to help them have a roadmap that will help them be successful in their work. In doing this with more than a dozen organizations now, I have found that board members are deeply relieved because they have somebody working directly with the executive director every week to help them get things in order and move things along, and they start to see more money. The board of directors feel like they have more direction. They know what's going on. It starts to feel a sense of stability and structure. And that's usually what board members are saying when they say we need to run it like a business. They're really talking about we need stability and structure. And in most cases, the only thing they have to look to that they are familiar with that gives stability and structure are businesses. So then they say you need to run it like a business because you have no stability, you don't have any structure, you don't have any metrics, you don't have outcomes, you don't have great trained staff. You're lacking a lot of things for an organization that's designed to do a lot. You need to structure yourself like a business. They're really saying you need to put systems in place that allows this nonprofit to do the work, attract the money, and have the impact. That's really what they're saying. So that's what I do. That's the work that I do with nonprofits all day long. I'm happy to do that with any nonprofit executive director that you know. But to all my aspiring nonprofit executive directors who are saying, should I start a nonprofit? I'm going to say no. But if after listening to this, you're like, well, Yvette, I am somebody who's passionate about the community. I am somebody who wants to do good. I didn't pick up this work to try to make it a job. I'm not trying to, find a way to keep the money for myself. I do think I should get paid, and I would agree. But you're like, I understand what it means, but I need help. I need help getting started, and I want to be the very best kind of executive director. Then, if you're that person, then the answer is yes. Yes, you should do it because you have identified a need. You seem to have the skill set, the passion to do it. You seem to be able to attract people who want to support and help. And you are the person that should start a nonprofit because you get it. And if I can help you along the way, I'm here. Give me a call.